Yes. So Friday, June 30th,
More
this
healing.
is we're hitting the snooze button, Ingrid. That's what this is. We're hitting the snooze button. This is Neptune, the god of fresh water and the sea, the planet of illusion, deception, compassion, and intuition.
Oh, I thought it was Uranus at first. It's always the Neptune and
Uranus.
Uranus every
People get
time.
Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto confused. They get Neptune and Pluto confused or Neptune and Uranus confused. It's totally natural. You get a pass. But this is retrograde. Neptune
Mm.
begins its retrograde transit today. This is why I am talking about hitting the snooze button, because we're looking back into, we're going to scroll back. We're scrolling back into the dream, into the unconscious. Neptune is the planetary ruler of Pisces. It's going to be moving into Aries in 2025, 26. We got a couple more years of Neptune and Pisces. It's so important for us to be doing this inner work and really acknowledging whatever's coming up, not ignoring it, paying attention to it, and showing ourselves compassion, so that when Neptune moves into Aries in 25, 26, it's not going to be that big of a dumpster fire out in front of
Mm.
your house. But Neptune is retrograding back to 24 degrees. It will be there on December 6th. That is when Neptune returns to direct motion. It moves out of its retrograde shadow on March 26th of 2024. So literally where Neptune is right now on June 30th is where it will be on March 26th of next year. That's how slow Neptune goes. Neptune moved into its retrograde shadow on March 9th of this year, 2023. So Neptune literally spends like a year in over a year in its retrograde shadow. It's just like constantly in the retrograde shadow, and it's doing this thorough work. Like, look in your chart, what is at 24 to 27 degrees or nearby those degrees in water signs, in earth signs, in mutable signs. These are the signs that are making a strong alignment to Neptune. These are whatever planet is aligning with Neptune. Like if it's Venus aligning with Neptune, say you were born with Venus at 27 degrees in Gemini, you are going through a period where you are maybe losing faith in your relationship, or you're losing faith in your ability as a partner. And it's time for you to delve deep and reimagine the dream of what it means to be in relationship, what it means to be a partner. What do you feel, Ingrid?
Well, I'm just wondering if this is going to be a time for hiding from yourself, where you're trying to distract yourself from the truth of.
That's what this whole Neptune transit has been about. Neptune moved into Pisces back in 2011, 2012. And what have we seen since then? Think about like words like binge watching, Netflix and chill, doom scrolling. They didn't exist before 2011. Why is that? Because we're stuck in the fantasy, because we want to escape
Yeah, the
having to deal with our own
escapism.
stuff. Yes.
So during this period, is it good to indulge in that, or should we be trying to be rooted in reality and not get sucked into this fantasy of ignoring what like is in front of us?
You want to you want to be aware of when you're stepping into fantasy,
Okay. Okay.
and you want to make sure that it's not taking over your life in some way, whether
Mm.
it's drugs and alcohol, or just, I binge watched, 7 shows this week,
I mean, I
like.
feel like I've gotten a pretty good grip on like alcohol. I don't use that to check out anymore. Being like promiscuous when I was younger, I feel like that was definitely a way to check out.
Mhm.
And now I feel like those were like, the big ones where I'm like, oh, like I've done so much work. But then other shit comes in to replace it, literally just like Netflix or Instagram
Mhm.
or, just hanging out with a partner. Like that can be just as distracting. even
So
though it's
you
not maybe as destructive, it is
Mhm.
living in this fantasy. And even like I am to the place where I am aware of when it's happening. I'm like, oh, I'm not dealing with my stuff. I just don't want to deal with it. So I'm going to do this. Like it's a conscious choice. And even when I'm in that choice, sometimes I will check in with it, but it's still there. Like I am still doing those things to kind of have a little mini vacation from life,
So the first step is awareness. So you said you're aware when you're doing it.
which is so strange.
The second step is, what is my motivation right now to escape?
Mhm. Mhm.
What am I escaping from? Is there somebody that I just spent time with that is now maybe triggered something within my unconscious? That's another word that didn't
Mm.
exist in the way that we're using it right now. Triggered. The
Mm.
reason why that word is such a word now is because everyone is triggered. We are we are we're more
There's an
aware of what's happening.
awareness.
There's an awareness
Yeah.
that this person is annoying me right now, or I'm angry at this
Something
person, or I
is
just spent time with this person. I have to escape because I can't deal with like all their stuff or whatever. But
Mhm.
what is it about that that's triggering you? Because whatever you're triggered by is something that exists within yourself that you're
Okay,
hiding from.
I do want to touch, I mean, I don't know if this is necessarily important, but
Mm-hmm.
the idea of I feel like everyone is triggered now. Everything triggers everyone, so now we have to
Mm-hmm.
have trigger warnings to prevent people from being triggered.
Mm-hmm.
But the real work is in working when you are triggered. That means you have some work to do within yourself. It's not everybody else's responsibility to make sure
Mm-hmm.
that you aren't having these buttons being pressed. These
Yeah.
buttons being pressed is giving us we're at the level where like, oh, I know this is poking at me. So that's
Mm.
good to have an awareness that something
Mm-hmm.
triggered you. But that's not everyone else's responsibility to manage it. It's our own responsibility to come to terms with how we integrate these things that have happened to us that are still bothering us.
Yes. I had a really big trigger moment a couple days ago. Maybe it's yesterday. I was driving to the grocery store. Another car was stopped. It was a white BMW SUV. And there were two people sitting in this SUV. And they threw out of the window two like Starbucks coffee to go things or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. They just threw it out the window. And I was so upset about this. I almost like turned around and like was gonna chase them down, but I was like, no, it's too extreme. Like, why is this bothering me so much? Like, that's
Mm-hmm.
what I was like. Why does that bother me so much? Why am I so angry about
Mm-hmm.
this? Like, I was literally having feelings
Mm-hmm.
like these people are not worthy of being here on planet Earth. Like, they're fucking scum. How could you do that? Like, you're in this expensive car and you're that like just so
Disrespectful.
disrespectful
Yeah.
of. I was really upset. So I had to ask myself, like, why
Like
am I so upset
why?
about this? Like,
Yeah.
why am I getting so angry about this? And maybe there's something within me where I've been disrespectful and I, have not left the campsite as good as I found it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
still like pondering this. I haven't really had that like sort of crystallization of understanding why, but that's kind of an example of, I'm sitting with this and I'm trying to. That's another thing to talk to my therapist about.
Yeah, it's important to recognize these things so we can work through them so they don't just keep happening instead of just obsessing on hating something. It's like, wait, why am I so fucking pissed?
Mm-hmm.
Why what is it within me that is like so revolted?
I went into this whole fantasy where I like pulled over. I had this whole fantasy where I was like walking down the street and that happened. And what if that happened? Like, I'd
Mm,
pick up the coffee paper cups and I'd
yeah.
throw them back in the car, and then they'd pull out a gun and shoot me or something. Like, who knows like who you're dealing with? Like,
Yeah.
how is there, like, how do you I went into some dark places. So yeah, it's I've got work to do there. Work to do. That's
I
my
mean,
therapist's job. Yeah, helping me. But there's a lot of this triggering happening. So why are you being affected in the way that you are? That's the question.